I'm Matthew,
I'm Marty.
I'm Carlos.
Oh, and I'm Johnny.
and we are the Heroes 3 plus Johnny. Welcome to Heroes 3, the bi-weekly podcast where three friends explore the best, worst, and everything in between in the world of Asian cinema. And this week we are checking out a much more recent film than we usually do with 2024's Ghost Killer, directed by Kensuke Sonomura. And to talk about it this week, we are rejoined with Johnny, the Fanatical Dragon. Thank you for joining us again.
My absolute pleasure to be here. I think, if I'm right in saying, this is the first time you guys have ever dived into Kensuke Sonomura.
Yes,
That is correct.
absolutely.
Yes, it is.
Long overdue, actually. But
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's I was about to say I had heard of a couple of his movies, but this is the first one that I had seen of it. So, Carlos, I will kick it over to you for this pick.
Yeah, I'll juggle the ball a little bit, but I'd love to pass it over to you, Johnny. But Ghost Killer was a film that was recommended to us by Johnny, and Kensuke Sonomura is a name that I'm familiar with. And actually, it kind of goes way back to, I guess, us talking about Versus. I didn't mention him by name.
right.
But Yuji Shimomura and Kensuke Sonomura, they exist in this company called Uden Flameworks.
Mhm.
And this is like a really exciting Japanese action, I don't know, not school, but kind of creative space.
Yeah.
And over
Gotcha.
the years, we've seen their work show up in a ton of different things. Like for me, especially, I mean, more than movies, I also love video games. And when video games get ridiculous, I also love that. And so stuff like Devil May Cry, stuff like cutscenes in like Tekken, Metal Gear Solid,
RE.
the Twin Snakes, Resident.
Yeah.
So Resident Evil's an interesting case where, and this is really fun that I get to mention this because I remember seeing maybe last year or maybe year before that, there was this really this clip from one of the CG Resident Evil films where it's like, I think Leon and somebody else like rolling around the ground, but they're having like a gunfight, and it's like ridiculously over the top. And the thing that was so fun for me was I could tell by a person's reaction to seeing that clip whether they're cool with me or they're somebody that I just didn't want to talk to. Because like if somebody was like pointing at it and laughing at it like, oh my god, this is so horrible, I can't believe it, I was like, yeah, you're cool, you can stay over there.
Like,
but if somebody
yeah.
gets really excited about it and be like, holy crap, I can't believe they're doing something like this with like stars in their eyes, then I was like, okay, cool, we can hang out a little bit.
There's definitely a big difference
fair.
between the "oh my god, that's so dumb" complimentary and "oh
Yeah.
my god, that's so dumb" derogatory.
Yeah.
I ran into that a few years back whenever someone they were talking about Bloodsport,
Mm.
and I said, "God, that movie's so dumb." And I meant it as a compliment because I
Yeah.
love that
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
And it took a second for me to explain. No, I like the movie. I promise.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
historically accurate. Yeah.
Of course. But yes, again, we can get into that a little more as we're talking about things. But Johnny, I would love to hear
Yeah.
the reason why we are talking about this fun time today.
You're 100% spot on with the Udon Flameworks thing, but taking it a tiny little bit further back. So Kensuke Sonomura is, although they weren't at the school at the same time, but he's effectively a schoolmate of Kenji Tanigaki,
Right.
who, longtime Donnie Yen collaborator and the choreographer
Yeah.
behind the Rurouni Kenshin movies, and the man who's just directed The Furious. The two of them both attended Yusaki Kurata's school, his kind of action school, which is less a martial arts school, more training guys to be working stunt performers and kind of martial arts performers in movies. And Yusaki Kurata, more so than Sonny Chiba, who also had his own school in Japan, was kind of pretty ingrained into the Hong Kong film industry. So there's a real Hong Kong connection through both of those guys' kind of work, but it has been evolved a lot over the last maybe 10, 15 years, particularly by Kensuke Sonomura, who's really he's always remained in Japan, hasn't kind of followed Kenji Tanigaki over to work in Hong Kong, but has kind of continued to sort of evolve the action that he's done. gets a big budget when he's doing video games, always a tiny budget when they're doing movies, which still kind of, I think, frustrates me and inspires me in equal measure, because necessity being the mother of invention, these guys do so much with so little. Like in Ghost Killer, the movie we're talking about tonight, not a huge budgeted feature. He's also the editor on the feature as well, though he does have an assistant helping him. But most of what they achieved through it, which we'll absolutely get into when we're talking about the movie, a lot of it's sold by just really simple, old school filmmaking techniques, fades to black, and the old cowboy switch in a few places, and I love all that sort of stuff. But his own, he's probably best known in terms of for film fans as being the choreographer on the Baby Assassin series. And Ghost Killer is written by the director of Baby Assassins. So the two of those guys have been working together for a long time. So Yugo Sakamoto is the director of Baby Assassins, and he wrote Ghost Killer. And I think this is largely born out of Baby Assassins. So it's weird that you guys are kind of coming to it before having dived into the Baby Assassins movies, because you kind of see the evolution of our main actress through those films to getting to a point where she could handle the action that's in Ghost Killer, Akari Takaishi. And I think this whole project feels like it was born out of those three loving working together on the Baby Assassins movie. And so, yeah, really, really excited to get into it. And also because its main male star, is kind of one of my favorite collaborators that Kensuke Sonomura has had for years and years and years. Masanori Mimoto is criminally underrated. He's kind of known within action circles, but he doesn't really get that much of a chance to shine. He's normally a kind of background player. He does have a star role in another Kensuke Sonomura directed film called Hydra, which you guys should absolutely also cover. And please call me the second that you do, and I would love to come on for it, because that's a phenomenal movie too, but even lower budget. And Hydra kind of shows you the kind of beginnings of them starting to noodle around the ideas for what would become a lot of the choreography that we see in this, which is really different to the stuff that we would see in kind of Hong Kong movies. It has its own sort of flavor. It's not quite MMA. It's kind of more born out of kind of really boxing and this sort of weird grappling. And again, we can get into that a little bit more as we kind of dive into the episode. But yeah, I think this is just a wonderful entry point for you guys to kind of dive into this world particularly, and I hope it will leave you with an appetite for more. And then there's a whole bunch of other places that you can kind of go off the back of this one. So yeah, I'm super excited to get into it.
Yeah, I'm also super excited. And Hydra was the kind of the benchmark that kind of put Mimoto on the radar for me. And I do want, once we get into this, we'll get into the movie, but I still love like what you mentioned about the video game side of it all. And there's a Tekken like computer animated film called Blood Vengeance, and there's a pretty strong Tekken group of players locally by me, and when that movie was coming out, I knew these people cared about like the fighting game side of things, but I didn't think they would really care to go to the movies to see a movie about Tekken. And but they had like a one night showing, and actually some of my friends were talking about going. I was like, oh, all right, let's go. So we actually had to drive a little ways out, like maybe like 40 minutes to a theater to watch it. And it was one of the most hilarious experiences in a theater for me, because the movie's just ridiculous. It's just so stupid. But I mean, the high points are the action, and there's some really great action by Uden Flameworks, and I believe Sonomura worked on it. I'd have to double check myself. But there were some so dumb, like anime character moments in that movie. And the audience, like I said, these guys don't really care about the movie side. They care more about the fighting game side. And everybody was dunking on the movie at the same time in the theater. Like no tact, no, like in a different situation I would have been pissed, but it actually ended up being a really funny experience. So I hold on to stuff like that. But yeah, we're talking about this Ghost Killer, and I'll pivot towards that. And we've got this situation where it's like we've talked so many times about how the story drives the action in films, and the balance that happens there. But the thing that I really love here is we have a supernatural premise, and it's almost like when you're hanging out at night with your friends and you're just coming up with crazy ideas, like, hey, what if one guy didn't have arms and one guy didn't have legs, but then they like joined forces and they're like
Yeah.
this super. It's like this dumb idea, but I love that with this film they take that and they execute it in such a great way. So spoilers, I love this movie, and
Yeah.
I kind of get the feeling that we all do, and it also does remind me of like anime or video games. These are ideas like mechanically, they give you all of the details that you need to really, if this was like the mechanics of a video game, it would be awesome. I would love to play a game
Yeah.
based
I
on
wrote in my
this.
notes a couple of times how extremely video gamey it is.
Yeah.
With the whole taking the ghost can take over, but then you could also have the ghost be separate from you and they're invisible and they have to scout ahead. Like that's such a video game premise.
It would be awesome.
And it's
Yeah.
really fun.
Totally. You know, but I also think because maybe my expectations were expecting, something more akin to kind of like video game imagination. I don't know. I think some of the strength of the film, it is just so damn focused. And I think it's just a solid movie top to bottom, whether you have any investment in action cinema or cinema from Japan at all. And there, like you're saying, Carlos, there is this like really hooky premise at the center of it, but it doesn't, at least to me, it doesn't get kind of like out of hand or unwieldy. And there's never a hat on that hat. It's like that is the central crux
Yeah.
of it. And I don't know. It's just from like a movie making point of view, this is such a solid piece, and it's clear, from the first dozen frames or whatever, and it's a great showcase for some incredible on-screen performances, and I don't just mean like as action performers, and so glad to hear what you were saying, Johnny, about Mimoto, but also I've got to say, he's an incredibly solid dramatic actor, I think, given the form and confines of the movie that we have here. But
And he got a
this
bit
is
more
just
to do. He doesn't
super
always get
exciting.
this much to do. So this gave him actually. I often wonder if the real draw for him for this project was less about the action, which he's done in almost everything he's in, but actually
sure.
the fact that he gets to flex a little bit with his acting chops. He does a really good job.
And then also I have to say, growing up in an extremely cold climate, any kind of movie where your heroine is in like a winter hat the whole time and looking incredible. I don't know. There was some kind of wish fulfillment I didn't know that I needed here. It was just great.
Was this your first time seeing her?
I think all the way through I've seen a lot of clips from I've seen like clips from Baby Assassin stuff and I think some other projects, but yeah, this is definitely my first kind of full length experience with her.
Yeah,
She does a lot of great eye acting in this.
Oh yeah.
Because like the whole premise of that the ghost can take over her body, like she always does the eye acting to show like who's in control at the time, and they play with that in some really fun ways. But yeah, she's great. She has a great look.
Yeah, she's awesome. And actually, yeah, I can also mention that I was rewatching it last night just to refresh myself, and Joanna ended up watching it with me, and she like absolutely loved it. I was surprised. Cool. And I think
I think this has like crazy date movie potential, but I mean, what do I know? But
a big part of it, I do think, had to do with Akari's performance in the film. She's doing like double duty a lot of the time, and actually, I thought of like, I guess like kind of like Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin in moments.
Oh sure,
you know?
yeah,
for sure.
But seeing her kind of pull the weight of basically doing like 2 acting roles and then also being able to perform at such a high level in the action, it's just great. And Johnny, also I really love that you're kind of tying this to Baby Assassins, because the DNA of Baby Assassins and the growth between the 3 films and the TV series, which actually all of them are pretty easily available if you wanted to watch them. And yeah, I'd highly recommend all of that stuff. Even the TV show is really, really great.
Yeah, TV show is great.
Yeah,
less
and
action, but a lot more of the kind of, because there's a little bit of the same DNA here, but there was a kind of recent trend in Japanese cinema, particularly in cinema that was kind of aimed at Japanese youth, that they're they're kind of calling, I guess the closest approximate translation, I can't remember the Japanese phrase, would effectively almost be like slacker comedies, where
Sure,
there's
sure.
a style of delivering the dialogue that's really quite unnatural for how Japanese movies traditionally have been, and it's very kind of often over accentuated. Sometimes the dialogue's either mumbled or shouted, and they're not kind of like generally not behaving kind of like normal people. There's a kind of very anti-traditional role for Japanese youth, so that they're the very antithesis of the salaryman path. So they generally are struggling. They're a bit listless and lost in life, and they're kind of often. This is just as a general, not in these movies particularly, but they're kind of struggling to kind of find their place. And there's a lot of that in Baby Assassins, but through this weird lens that almost all of Kensuke Sonomura and Yuga Sakamoto's films like to explore, which is this kind of almost John Wickian underworld
Yeah.
that exists within society that's almost always revolving around hitmen or professional assassins. So I think you kind of see this sort of through road from pretty much every single thing that they've done. That there's always an element that's linked into that particular, I guess maybe like an evolution of a modern day samurai in a way, or a modern day ninja in a way.
Sure.
These assassins are kind of traversing through society, but often through the most mundane lens in Baby Assassins. So most of the time in Baby Assassins, you're seeing them struggling to pay their taxes, or
Yeah.
having to work menial.
They have to get a
part-time
part-time
jobs
job, yeah.
yeah, as a cover role, and we see a little bit of that here, though not in a way of it's not her cover. That's who she kind of is, and she's quite directionless in life, and that's why she's going on dates with these horrible dudes just because they've got pretty big social media
Right.
followings, and she's hoping that she can try and pick up some tips, and is just getting frustrated at every turn with those sort of encounters. And I think that it works really effectively here, partly because she's on her own. She's part of a double act in Baby Assassins with somebody who's much more physically capable. Saori, the other performer in Baby Assassins, came from a stunt background, so she initially was the one that was handling almost all of the action, and Akari was kind of
Right.
basically doing a little bit of gunplay in the first movie. By the time you get to the second movie, she's doing a little bit more physically, and then by the time you get to the third movie, I wouldn't say that she's on kind of equal par with the girl who's clearly been training for decades, but she handles her own really well. And so I think that this was the right sort of time to give her a project like this. I don't think she could have necessarily done it had she not gone through the trajectory of the three movies and the TV series.
I think we're ready, guys.
Yeah, as I say, I guess we should dive into talking about the movie itself.
Let's do
First, let's take a look at the Netflix summary. I don't know what you do for
Well, I
for
got a
movies
Blu-ray.
post this.
We're sticking to physical.
Oh, hey, we
media,
got a Blu-ray. There we go. Back of the Blu-ray. Love it. Is there actually a blurb on the back of the Blu-ray? Because I could read the actual one if it's decent.
I think so. I'll check and I'll let you know.
When college student Fumika stumbles upon the bullet that ended Hitman Kudo's life, his vengeful spirit takes hold of her body. Now, possessed by a ruthless assassin's rage and skills, she becomes an unstoppable force, hunting down those responsible for his death. As the body count rises, the line between Fumika and Kudo begins to blur. From action director of Baby Assassins, 1% Warrior, and Bad City, Ghost Killer delivers a furious tale of supernatural revenge.
So the kind of overall plot, we've been kind of dancing around it, is that it mainly follows this woman, Fumika, who runs into a bullet casing, and whenever she finds that, it kind of triggers her being haunted by this hitman who's mainly known as Kudo throughout the movie, who was killed in like the very opening of the movie, and now he's trying to get revenge to kind of free his spirit. And he can possess her so that he's doing the fighting, but it's her body, as well as them having to, figure out who killed him and what they wanted. They eventually run into another person who's known by Kagehara, who is kind of like this rival hitman. We find out a crime family, and that leads us through many great action set pieces to kind of get revenge and figure out what even happened.
Yeah, beautifully put.
And that's a cool kind of touch, is that Kudo, the Masanori Mimoto's character, whenever we see him as a ghost, he always has this big blood spot on his chest from where he was shot. This movie, you're talking about doing a lot with a little. This movie, you can tell that the movie has a tiny budget. There are many reused sets, lots of stuff outdoors, but like they make the most out of everything that they see. Like every set gets used at least twice.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's that kind of thing for film fans, like Matthew's saying, you can see all the economy of it. But I also think for kind of like a virgin audience walking into it, uh, it's so damn effective. Like just about every shot composition is really assured and confident and special. And it does not feel like you're on the ride for like a really compromised budget that's sort of rickety or anything. But yeah, I think yet another wonderful example of really economic filmmaking, and it's got to come down to the screenplay. There's nothing quite like designing a concept, knowing what your limits are going to be ahead of time, whether we're talking about a film or video game or any kind of medium. And this does not feel like something that is shaved down and kind of discovered in the edit, so to speak. I wouldn't be surprised if we're really committing to shots as we're going along, and I would sort of expect that. The shooting script looks probably quite a lot like the finished film that we have.
I think so too, and particularly with how kind of well worked out the transition switches are, because they do it in a multitude of different ways. Occasionally, if the choreography is going to be particularly intense, then Masanori Miyamoto will basically, he'll be the one that you're seeing on screen doing the action, and then I think they're using a multitude of different techniques. Can I mention the old cowboy switch, which they do at a couple of points, and sometimes they'll disguise them behind pillars, so the camera will pan swing on one side of the pillar and they're basically changing performer on the other side of the pillar at the same time, or a quick fade to black to kind of mask the cut. And they can make this switch by holding hands, which is a really simple device that you instantly understand. Like it's a really simple. They could have done something really elaborate, some sort of visual effect of like a wobbly screen of like the transition to kind of make her almost taken over, or fluttering of the eyes, or one of these sort of things that you're maybe more familiar with in horror movies about possession. But they kind of avoided all that sort of stuff and just kept it kind of really simple, and it's all the better for it. I think it.
Yeah, that's such a good one, because it also it's so satisfying because it's such a tangible thing. Like we all know that experience of giving somebody 5 or something, and it's a great way to kick off this action. Also, I love how well judged some of that is, because it's a little bit deeper into the film before we do the kind of switching that you were describing, where we actually get Mimoto sort of kind of representing his ghostly self. I think had we kind of employed that like early on in the film, I'm guessing you'd have this feeling of, just a little bit more like sort of been there, done that, or like I see the mechanics of sort of how the ride works. And given how focused the kind of the premise and the kind of the execution of the movie is, it still ends up, I think, having tons of surprise in it. And even this kind of central premise really has a lot more juice to it than you might think. I mean, even when you get into the final act, not to speed all the way to the end, but there are even some kind of new moves and new little hooks that we haven't really like taken advantage of that pay off in kind of a great way there. So anyways, like Carlos was saying earlier, a lot to be super excited about with this movie.
Yeah.
I think that the beginning act, because obviously with the Akari being essentially kind of like having to deal with this ghost, is not something, as you can understand, that she's initially super thrilled about. So that there is a kind of really nice, it almost eventually becomes a kind of buddy situation. But and maybe we've seen that trope in a bunch of other movies. But initially, she's very reluctant to it. Tries to exercise him with salt at one stage, which is kind of quite an amusing little sequence when they're sitting in a diner. And she has a friend who has an abusive relationship, and so the kind of the first initial point of her body being taken over to kind of handle a degree of action is kind of dealing with someone to kind of help her friend. So it's not something that's really remotely connected to anything that Kudo is trying to achieve. So he literally, I think, is the very beginning little kernel of this seed that's going to spark a change in him to actually try and get his head around the idea of helping other people. And So I think that the actual dynamic and the relationship between those two, which it's a fairly tried and tested trope of they hate each other at the beginning, they're cool with each other by the end, but it's wonderfully played here, and I think the two of them
Right.
played really nicely with each other, and so is a very reluctant partnership because I think they set up a nice physical gag, which again works really well. Where anytime that she gets beyond 15 meters of him, he'll disappear and reappear
And
right beside her.
reappear. It's like going all the way to the left in Pac-Man or something.
Yeah, so it's Bugs Bunny when somebody's trying to get away from Bugs Bunny, where no matter how far they run, he's there.
Yeah.
So same sort
Well,
of deal
also,
here.
I'm just reminded kind of the sorts of things I think that can happen in discussions around film and film commentary in general. It's like I understand why so many of us get sensitive to the idea of trope, but I think sometimes we kind of start by looking at that as a pejorative when really if we're trying to understand like what moves us all as humans in storytelling, there's going to be a lot of, beautiful recurring motifs, and the idea of two people building a relationship ought not to be something that we kind of I don't know dismiss too quickly.
Yeah,
I think
two
this
people
is
who
such
are
a
of
earnest example
different
of it.
backgrounds and very different stages of life.
Yeah, it's
becoming
like if we
friends,
stop
yeah.
telling that story, I don't know. I kind of worry about us. But also, as you were talking, Johnny, you were talking about these kind of little kernels in the film, and I think maybe one of my favorite tiny little images from the opening, which really kind of sets off the one fantastical conceit of the film, is this shell casing, and it's what Kensuke really kind of focuses on at the end of this brilliant cold open, which is going to be kind of like the action set piece that will have to kind of satiate us for a while. But then there's this great kind of, I don't know, traveling nonverbal little adventure of following this shell casing. And it's just a beautiful example of kind of showing without telling. Just the fact that we're paying attention to this means that there's more than just sort of like the self-evident, I don't know, representation of the shell casing. So we don't need to really get into all that much detail of, I think, even justifying the magic. We're so interested in kind of following where this shell casing goes. And I especially love this tiny little camera move when finally, like, our heroine is like traveling up these steps and she trips on something, and all of us in the audience kind of know what she's about to stumble on, but then the camera moves what feels like 2 inches to kind of reveal the shell in front of her. And I don't know, I just like, it's like an electric little moment. I thought it was amazing.
Totally, and it's kind of funny too because you're thinking it's going to be like this big pullback, and it's just it's right there.
Yeah, it's so
right.
cool.
Yeah.
And it's such a curiously, uniquely Japanese notion of the idea of absolutely everything having a spirit or having the potential to kind of have a spirit. Whether
Love
that in this case, the vengeful spirit. So it kind of Marie Kondo, is it Marie Kondo?
Yeah.
The fact that this is kind of
my God.
represented so wonderfully here.
Someone's got to put Marie into an action movie and like
Oh, guaranteed.
clearing out people's like hoarding.
Did it bring you
and
joy?
shit. Yeah.
That casing does not spark joy.
Yeah. Not at all.
No, I thought you were going to say the very Japanese idea that she has absolutely no idea what that is. Whatever she sees on the ground.
She also didn't. I don't
yeah.
think she realized that it was a
Yeah.
bullet. But I think because the
Yeah.
reason that she picked it up and kept it is because when she picked it up, she got a tiny little flashback. So she got a little kind of moment where she saw the gun
Yeah.
going off, and was so kind of taken aback by it that I think she then pops it in her pocket. And kind of later on, when she finally actually encounters the person who, and I'm not going to give his name, so I don't want to spoil it. But when they finally encounter the person who has ultimately fired that shot that killed Kudo, she gets more of the sequence, so she's able to kind of see more of the story when she gets her hand on that particular gun. So it kind of it uses flashback in a way where you could just have someone looking off into the distance, and we kind of see the flashback in that sort of way, but he kind of found a much more interesting way to kind of lead into those little moments. And even though we already knew the story, so we know the beats before she does, it's not a case of the audience kind of learning these things at the same time as our main character. But it was a really wonderful little device, again, through really like just perfect economy.
These are all amazing points, and I love. I'm the one sitting listening to you guys, which is great. There was a couple of things as we're going through. We can talk about this first high five, and them kind of getting thrust into this fight for protecting her friend Maho. But right at the beginning, you guys are talking about this bullet casing jumping around. And when I was rewatching it last night, I was like, oh, wait a second. That little kid grabs the bullet casing. What if there was a movie where it's the little kid that's fighting the whole time? And I thought that would be pretty funny.
It could be pretty cool. Ghost Killer too.
Yep. Yeah. The other thing that I love is you were talking about this kind of like 15-meter distance, like reset. And I love there's a moment where the first time she runs away from him, Kudo tries to like fly. Like he's like, I'm a ghost. He just tries to fly for a moment. And he's like, damn it, I can't fly.
He's like, what? I can't fly? Come on.
Oh, that's so good.
That's great.
Yeah, but she's wrapped up with her friend, and her friend has an abrasion on her face, and you really quickly understand that she's got an abusive boyfriend. And Fumika's kind of, I guess, sense of justice or sense of duty to her friend thrusts her into the middle of that conflict. And now we realize that there is the possibility that they can swap, or he can possess her, basically. And this is where we see that realized in a great way. And I love that when she's convinced to do the high five. Yeah, Matthew, you said her facial expression changes. And she's doing this really great thing where, again, it's just her acting. And she's acting as Fumika, but then she's also acting as Kudo in her body. And I love, like, when she first decks that boyfriend, she gives him like a straight, but she also has a painful reaction, like, ow, that hurt.
Yeah, right.
So it's like both of them occupying the same space. There's this anime that I really like from there's a couple that I can mention, but one I think of it's called Birdie the Mighty, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but basically it's like there's this she's like an alien police kind of officer. She's chasing a criminal, and she accidentally kills an innocent bystander. But in order to save him, she basically merges with him. So they're both possessing the same body. And actually, in a way, this is the premise for Ultraman, because in the original Ultraman, the Ultraman being is an alien, and when it crashes down to Earth and accidentally kills like a soldier and then possesses that person. But anyways, being familiar with Birdie the Mighty and being a fan of Ranma 1/2, which is something that it was like kind of the first like anime that I followed, knowing it was anime. And Ranma 1/2 is this idea where there's a young martial artist that's cursed, and whenever he's tossed cold water, he turns to a woman. And as the series plays out, he begins to understand that maybe it's not necessarily a curse, or maybe not so much that, but he can use it to his advantage, not just as like a man-woman situation, but he can also use it to his advantage as a martial artist. And they scratch at ideas here that are very similar to what I know from Ranma, and I really enjoyed all of that. But to get to Sonomura's eye for action, we did see in that cold open this infighting that you mentioned. It's like this awesome sequence where you've got Kudo being assailed on by like 3 assassins. And it is very reminiscent to me of like ninja cinema. Actually, recently I watched Shinobi no Mono. I've been watching all of them through these Radiant sets, and I had seen some of them before, but it's really nice to be able to see them through these sets. And I watched the 6th film, and there's a couple of great action sequences in these films where it's literally just quiet. You don't hear anything. You just see these ninjas. There's maybe 6 or 7 ninjas, fighting, and you'll hear like a clash, or you'll hear like kind of maybe a grunt, but overall it's completely silent. And having watched that maybe not more than a week or two ago, and then watching this opening sequence, I'm reminded of that, and it's just really, really cool to me. But here, basically, she just totally destroys this dude, and he's totally shocked that she would even touch him, let alone strike him. So
Right.
I think it's a really great catharsis to see this young girl just totally destroy
Totally.
this
But then there's that
abuser.
great little beat where Kudo reminds her like that she actually made the first move. Like she had the impulse to defend her friend, and at the tempo that the movie kind of plays out in, we're not going to really stop to dwell on some of these concepts, but I think it's a really juicy idea that I think in some ways ends up kind of seeding some of the depth of their kind of pairing, their relationship that kind of grows throughout the, what do we have, like 100 minutes maybe?
Yeah,
like right around there,
pretty
yeah.
short. And I think I'm part of there's this wonderful get around where it's just taken as a given. Like literally every single person that discovers that this situation has happened,
Yeah, it's like,
takes
oh,
it
it's a
without
ghost. Why
almost-
didn't you say so? Yeah.
Oh, it's a ghost possessing you. We've all been there. So that there's no time spent or no time wasted in a way
That's
of
such a
her
good
having
point.
to convince people of the fact that this has happened. And I think the only person who's even remotely slightly skeptical is the other hitman. And I think that's just there so that he can recognize him through action. So once she's basically able to kind of fight, or once Kudo is able to fight through her, the other hitman realizes by the movements, okay, yeah, you're Kudo.
Yeah.
Like everyone else just takes it completely as given, including all of the organized crime gang.
Yeah.
All those guys just take it straight
Well, I
away.
think they strike a nice balance because there's still the perfunctory, like, what, are you crazy? But not long enough to kind of slow down our momentum ever at all. So it's like, because I think sometimes full disclosure, like especially when it comes to so much animated fare out of Japan, I'm usually searching for more kind of grounded humanity than I ever seem to get. And like from that bias, like it was still very like grounded observations, I would say, most of the time for me. But yeah, I totally agree. It's like we kind of never ruin the flow or drag things down with that kind of like awkward, obligatory sort of resistance or something.
Never becomes a comedy of confusion. It never steps into although it's a slightly different setup, it never steps into Freaky Friday territory. So we're never having to deal with comedy of errors of somebody assuming that they're dealing with one person and in reality they're dealing with someone else. So they never kind of play that card, thank God, because that kind of, I think, that would have taken it into a very different sort of territory.
That's just that's a different movie, and that's not what this movie is. Like Marty was saying in the beginning, it's very focused on what it wants this movie to be. And that kind of leads us to our next big action set piece, which is in the bar. Because there's this very popular guy on, I say very popular, doesn't she say she has like 30,000 followers on Instagram or something?
Yeah,
like it's
I think something like
it's
that.
like a decent bit, but it's not like, top level celebrity or something.
Right.
And Kudo recognizes the guy and is like, oh, he's bad news. So they set up this kind of thing to see if they're on the level or not.
And it's great because we kind of save that conversation for later.
And
what I thought was so touching when we experience it as a flashback, we do get some classic kind of filter, colored filter for the flashback, and it's like that puts us in really good company for so many movies that we've talked about for years now.
We love to see it.
We love to see it. It's not red, but it is a similar idea, though.
But the window of time between when it happened and when we're seeing it is pretty close. So we're pretty close to that fun idea.
But that leads to a huge fight scene. Like this goes on a lot more than I was expecting it to, because she gets possessed and is able to take out the two kind of shitty guys pretty easily. But then ends up having to fight the waiter. And this felt so Hong Kong, like the whole like kind of having like a guest fighter come in that like only appears in one scene of the movie to be a heavy and then never again. And he has like a really really distinct look and stuff too, wearing like this, wearing the white with the bow tie and everything.
Mm-hmm. There's two. I think there's basically. The first time I watched, I wondered if they were twins, but they're not. They're just dressed the same. But there's like kind of two. There's like because a guy steps in out of nowhere into the kind of the sequence.
Yeah,
but I love there's a very quick little beat when Kudo realizes that this person's pretty skilled, and just immediately grabs an ice pick, I think, and she holds it in such an incredible way. There's kind of like this sort of very tactical kind of knife stance, and then Fumika kind of rebels against this idea of like, wait a minute, no, we don't want to kill him, and so he changes to a dart, and kind of like then the action sequence plays out that sort of way. But it's a really kind of wonderful little kind of beat. So because I think it would be a very different experience with every time that she was possessed if there was none of her energy left. But they continually sort of constantly speaking back and forth to each other, even when he's in control of her body. So she's still kind of like cognitively aware, which kind of gives it this kind of really nice energy through all the sequences, because the other people around who are unaware of what's happening are confused why this person's having a conversation with her, a one-sided conversation with herself, because they obviously can't hear the replies, which is really nice.
And to attempt to depict what we experienced just overall with sort of the action in the film, extremely kinetic. I love how you described it earlier, Johnny. There's a real emphasis on boxing, but for some of our audience, you can think of this branch that goes back to maybe SPL, which is also a Tanigaki project, I believe, right?
Yeah, and Uden Flameworks, like, I think Yuji Shimomura worked on SPL. If not that, it was Flashpoint.
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. So it's like it's kind of the a generation or two after some of those sensibilities, as which we've talked about in the past, as MMA concepts were making their way into action cinema. So we have very kinetic, very grounded hand-to-hand combat, typically with I would say typically a very fluid camera, and most this all gets really subjective. I mean, there are times where maybe I could have imagined some stationary moments working pretty well, but in general, I feel like Sonomura really kind of knows where he wants moves to land, and we get just some extremely interesting shapes, like arriving right at a perfect kind of camera position. I would say most of the time, especially considering the budget and the schedule, I'm sure, of the movie. And this is something that is all really kind of attacking all of your senses from that very initial cold open, and that's kind of the sensibility, I would say, of most of the action sequences as we get going. But also, and it's I think it kind of plays a part here in this bar sequence. I've got to say that really the costuming is not something that we would talk about all that much in action sequences, but I think there's something pretty inspired that comes down to literally what folks are wearing. And mentioned like kind of the winter hat, and there's also winter coat. There's a lot of coats. Like this is probably the most coats per capita for punching and kicking that we've probably ever come across. And then we've got that contrasted with the kind of like standard upscale bow tie white shirt of this kind of waiter or server and bartender.
Yeah,
and,
I love that.
And that ends up playing into the sound design too, which is exceptional. We haven't maybe called it out enough, but overall cinematography and look of this picture is just, I think, so damn strong. And yeah, all these things add up to something really great.
Yeah, to speak on the choreography too, like you were talking about how how kinetic and how wild the camera is moving. To me, this is like when you see like previs like stunt work and it looks like really exciting and people are really trying to go all out, but you can tell that it's like kind of like a little too wild and they're just kind of like, you know, feeling themselves. I feel like with Sonomura's work, and especially what we see here in this film, it's really kind of like I guess the handshake between like a final product and the previs, because I think it looks very confident, even if the camera, like, I kind of agree with you, Marty. I think the camera maybe moves a little more than I would expect it to or would want it to. I think it really does serve the energy really well. And there's these really great moments. You know, we mentioned there's two bartenders here, and where it's a 2-on-1 choreography. And you know, in a Hong Kong thing, we're expecting, you know, this dance between the three, but this is like they're acrobatic in a way that I guess, yeah, their feet are always on the ground. It's not like they're doing flips or doing rolls around each other.
Yeah.
It's more like they're doing like a guitar slide in between the legs of people. And they're using that more than just in like the movement and the shapes, but that actually becomes like a factor in stuff. So like there's a moment here where Fumika, she keeps her leg out while these guys are coming at her, and one of the bartenders trips on her leg because he's like sliding towards her, and he falls and hits the other bartender's leg to knock himself out. That takes him out of the fight, and I love it. It's just so great.
Yeah, and that kind of thing really encapsulates some of what's really special about Sonomura's choreography. Is we get a lot of interesting shapes that also are incorporating like falls and recovery and intersection of legs that are intentional strikes and accidental like adjustments and everything. And it's all really special. Also, I think it ends up being so effective from the point of view of something we were saying earlier, which is like there's this one magical conceit, which is the possession of the ghost. It's not like then we go into maybe a more heightened like wire fu kind of action where, you know, she's super heroic. I mean, compared to you or I, you know, obviously this is amazing and dazzling, but it's such grounded fighting most of the time. And you really can continue to kind of believe that it's like, okay, we're talking about like a really elite, you know, combat veteran for, you know, for hire or whatever.
There's a thing that I think Sonomura kind of worked out on Hydra, where they realized that most of the time when people were throwing punches, so in the Hong Kong way, that they would lightly connect quite a lot, which is what kind of gave it its edge over what Hollywood was doing at that sort of period in the 80s, where it was so obviously actually kind of connective. So it feels more real, it feels more dynamic. And he decided that they'd try to do this thing where instead of the connection point being the end of the fist with whoever they were punching, they would be aiming with their wrist. So they're always aiming slightly above the head of whoever it is that they're going for. And so the other performer's basically trying to get their head, the person who's meant to be dodging the punch, is essentially meant to be, or attempting to kind of get their head to contact and connect with the wrist as the fist's passing over the top of their head. And then they'll work that into all their moves. And you kind of first start noodling around with this concept in Hydra with the same actor that we see here. He's kind of the main action performer in Hydra, Masanori Mimoto. So he's been doing that for as long as Sonomura's been doing that. But then when it came time for them to do the Baby Assassins, he kind of had this conundrum of how he could conceivably have two quite diminutive performers, the two girls, effectively kind of coming across as being able to combat much larger opponents. And his kind of inspiration came from there's a Japanese boxer called Nanoya Inoue.
Oh man, he's amazing.
AKA the monster, right? And he is
Yes.
5'5", I think, tall. So he's a small dude, but is known for basically knocking almost everybody he comes up against out. He's an unbelievable knockout to win ratio. So he kind of drew a huge amount of inspiration from him when it came to choreographing the stuff for the babies. And I think he's worked the two of those elements together in a really fluid way and kind of incorporating some stuff that I first saw Kenji Tanigaki doing in the Rurouni Kenshin movies, which is almost when they run, almost like when Homer runs in the circle on the floor.
Yeah.
To get our Simpsons nod in. It's
Yes.
almost got a beat of that where they're almost going around to the point where they're almost horizontal to the ground. And in
Yeah.
Rurouni Kenshin they have to do that with wires, but here they do that by having the person essentially holding onto the body of whoever it is that they're going up against, and then being able to run around or slide around the outside.
And we get quite a bit of that in the kind of gunplay finale. Yeah.
Yeah, in Kenji's case, because these things often come from the weirdest inspirations. Because I had the joy of interviewing Kenji a while back, and he said that specifically came from the Castle of Cagliostro, and the point when Lupin's car drives up onto the wall and spins around the outside, and that's kind of where he loved that beat when he was a kid, and so he kind of tried to think of a way of trying to incorporate that into the action. So then was born the sort of horizontal run, and I think the next evolution of that in Sonomura's work, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more. Carlos can confirm a lot more of that in the Furious. It's become, because we maybe didn't say already at this point, but the Furious is going to be a merging of these two worlds. So Kenji Tanigaki is the director, and Kensuke Sonomura is the action director of that movie. So the two of them working together on the Furious is going to be spectacular to see. But yeah, it's been fascinating seeing how he's kind of really cut his teeth. There's the last performer that I'll mention, sadly not in this movie, but there's a kind of even more independent Japanese action filmmaker called, it just goes by a single name. She's called Ayane. She's in a film called Mad Cats, which Third Window recently put out, which is a wonderful premise of cats inhabiting human bodies, basically, or effectively cats are human bodies. Inside human bodies, and there's some incredible action in that, but she's pretty spectacular in the stuff that she does. If you follow her social media, they're often doing these what you would consider previs style footage, so really low budget, just somebody with a phone recording two people going at it. But a lot of the choreography that's coming out of Japan seems to be an evolution of this style. We can kind of think of, maybe we should call it the sort of Japanese contemporary, the Japanese modern style. It's very different to what's happening in other places. It's kind of really interesting to me seeing how it's evolved in its own little way. And I think there is still shades of MMA in it, but I see it more as akin to kind of a lot more traditional boxing, and particularly with how their stances are and how their punches.
Well, and also I think from our perspective of kung fu obsessive or whatever, it does seem like there's kind of like a marination of a lot of the Hong Kong sensibility that is kind of working its way through, and as we've talked about before, there even with legends like Sony Chiba and others, there of course was a lot of crosstalk and a lot of collaboration going back decades. But I also think that there were, from the outside, it always seemed like there was a certain amount of pride from each filmmaking culture of while we were cooking up these great fusion dishes, sort of within reasonable limits maybe or something. And I think one of the exciting things about getting to live long enough to see newer and newer generations of artists is you get to see the natural just accents that they speak in and how they're able to kind of express all of what they love from all these different sources. And so I don't know. I mean, I think this kind of new wave of Japanese action, of course, it owes a lot to its own traditions, but it's just really breaking new ground. Period. I think.
100%. I can't remember if I mentioned this the last time that we sat down together, but there's a stunt performer who's much more known for his work in video games called Eric Jacobus, and he's done a bunch of movies too. But really his main job, and I think he was Kratos in God of War, so he did all the motion cap for the two new God of War games. But he's written a book called If These Fists Could Talk, and he has this theory about different nations having different choreography style based on the language of that culture. And so the American kind of the way that kind of English is spoken in America and is sort of fused into the way that a lot of American action is, and he's convinced that that's also true of Cantonese and Hong Kong action, and also of Japanese. Really interesting concept that he's dived into, and I think he's had experience having to do action for games from Japan, and he's I think worked on some Hong Kong production. He essentially has kind of had this experience of working in these different nations type of choreography, and has come to this understanding. But it's a really interesting concept that I've only really heard coming from him, but I think it's there's something there. There's something quite intriguing that I think is I'm intrigued to kind of explore or dive into his thoughts more at some point. I need to kind of read that book.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I've got the book too, and I've been a fan of his for a really long time. And it's Super Alloy. I feel is the name of the company that he was doing motion capture work for, and I believe they did some motion capture for the last Mortal Kombat game, maybe the game before that. And I mean, I've been a fan of his for a long time, and he interviewed the developers from Sifu, which is a game that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's a great game.
It was something where I was so excited to see the interview, and it was like something that I really would have wanted to do too, because when I played the game, I could really get the sense of the love of the same things that we enjoy on the podcast, and I was so thankful for him. And yeah, Eric Jacobus, he's like great. He's like a violence scientist.
Like intellectual of the
If you follow
punching
him
and
on
kicking.
social media, he'll like grab like kind of a clip that you would just see like as a meme, or maybe as just like a clickbait kind of somebody failing, like falling off of a house or something, but he'll like commentary on it as if it's like, oh yeah, this is like a type of action, or this is a kung fu. Like he just recently shared, it was a clip of parents with like toddlers, and it was like a super cut of the toddler like almost falling, and then the parent just their sixth sense of being able to capture the kid before they bonk their head. And he was like, this is kung fu. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it is.
Yeah, totally.
So and he did that. There's a movie that I wanted us to kind of talk about for a long time. It's an Indian film called, I believe it's called The Man Who Feels No Pain, if I'm remembering right. And more recently there was an American film called, I think, Novocaine, which is kind of the same idea. And that's just the guy has like a physical ailment where he literally doesn't feel pain, but Jacobus is kind of like the action kind of director of that, and it's really, really cool to see. Similar like to this, it's like a low budget film, but you can tell that they're really excited about the action they're putting on film.
Wasn't that notion linked into part of Kick-Ass after the first or second time when he was really
Oh
bad?
yeah, no, you're right.
I think he ends up. But Jacobus, we should also say, we're on the subject of him, his YouTube channel is great, and he's interviewed Kensuke Sonomura. So if anyone's interested to like hear Kensuke speak about his techniques, go and check out that interview, because it's fascinating. It was obviously before he made Ghost Killer, but it really is good.
Yeah, we can link it in the notes for sure.
Yeah, it's both sides of it, where we're just appreciating it from the outside looking in. He's like a stunt performer, and I think there's a level of insight that you rarely get in interviews when he's involved, and it's a really great thing. And I've mentioned him in the past in the podcast, but happy to mention him again. And thank you for bringing him up. And the book, it's a fairly small book, and it's available, I think, on Amazon is where I got it. But yeah, okay, so let's get back to the movie. But I love this movie is lighting us up, like, and it's the action, it's everything. But these bartenders get whomped, right? And it's a beautiful thing. And now we have basically a pile of bodies that need to be taken care of. And we have a young girl that has nothing, she's not from this world. She doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, no resources here. Yeah.
And Kudo recommends to her that she call his other, I guess it's like a senpai kohai thing, like a senior and a younger member of their guild, and she calls him, and we're introduced.
Like not quite Harvey Keitel, a much younger and more dashing guy. But also, this is I think another example of there being a branch of kind of the magic premise that we didn't see coming, which is like, oh, I can still talk you through a phone call, like. And you get to use me that way too, and I don't know, pretty juicy.
So that is this new character Kagehara, who comes in, played by Mario Kuroba, who's this young guy, and he doesn't believe her at first until he goes to kill her. Kudo possesses her, and he's able to fight her off, and it's like, you still never beat me, which is very a cold line for a ghost to say.
And maybe one of the most just kind of like delightful beats of the whole thing is we get this wide shot with all three of them, and she's trying to sort of translate in the middle, and we keep track of the logic super well, where she's like, no, he can hear that. I don't know.
That made me laugh.
It's all in a single take. It's really great.
The other thing that I wanted to mention too is, as we're going through this film, whenever I watch like an action-y, like Japanese thing, and I see an actor that maybe I don't exactly recognize, and they're like 20 or 25, my default is like, okay, they're from Kamen Rider or Sentai show, you know? But I was really impressed multiple times when I was looking up these actors. Most of them had mainly stage acting background. And it was like, whoa, wait a second. So it's not pulling from like the same pools that you would expect. And and his name's Mario, which is awesome too, because I think of, phonetically, if you read it, it's like, oh yeah, that is like a Japanese name. But when you hear Mario, you don't think of it as a Japanese name, which is
certainly not
pretty fun.
Maybe that's why like Miyamoto like latched onto it back when it's like
maybe
I don't know. It's like, there's something to this. Like
there's an English name that I or a non-Japanese name that I can say really easy. So Mario.
But I really like him here. He's super cold. And you can tell that there's a history here.
And you also have the shorthand of cinema where it's like they're around the same age, they're both attractive. It's like your instincts like want them to, I don't know, to kind of grow in some kind of like affinity or whatever. And I think the movie does satisfy that ultimately.
Yeah, it's awesome too though, because like they're so rigid, her being thrust into this world and him being like a professional in the world, they really kind of like bump up against each other. But yeah, it's fun to see those layers peel away.
I was just gonna say, and he works as a wonderful device to lead us into the next kind of big dramatic arc of the fact that he kind of rats them out. We kind of learn that the whole reason why Kudo was killed is because the father or the head of the crime organization he was working for had died, and his son's taken over, and the son has come in with a very different mentality, and he'd decided not to follow through on one job, which you kind of get the sense wouldn't have necessarily been a life or death problem under the old regime, but under the new regime, that sort of stuff is not being tolerated. So that then the word had come out to presumably somebody who was a friendly rival, I think we can say, of the other hitman. I was sort of tasked with having to kind of be his demise, and we then get to see a little bit of the new crime organization with the tracksuited wearing new head.
And they're very antisocial, this group, I think.
Yeah, that's what she says.
Yeah, it's a recurring thing where he says, "Your antisocial organization," which is very fun. Because when I first saw that, I was like, I wonder if that's like just like a weird translation. But then it gets called out where he says, "Stop calling it that."
Yeah, it's great.
There's a really great little cameo when we go to finally meet the gang. Before they've dispatched the guys to go and try and take care of Kudo and Akari's character, we see them kind of coming up against a couple of kind of older guard Yakuza, and they're taken into another room and dispatched by the kind of new capable hitman that's kind of working for this new boss. But those two guys, I wondered if any of you guys had recognized that they're two slightly older gentlemen. One is Yoshiyuki Yamaguchi, and the other one's Ryo Chijima. But those two guys are in a series of incredibly low budget V cinema movies, which are, I think the name of the series is called The Unification of Japan. And at this point, or the point of us recording, I think they're up to, it's either 69 or 70 movies.
Wow.
Which they're mostly all dialogue driven, but they did do weirdly, like I think just last year or the year before, it was just last year.
It was last year.
An action spin-off, Isolated. Tamura Yota Isolated. So one of those two guys, both of those guys are in Isolated, but The grislier of the two guys is the kind of main character in Isolated, and that is that's another one that you guys have to do on the podcast at some point, because that would be a blast to speak about. But again, ultra low budget, and it was really a real treat seeing those two show up, and you could tell that was just a favor called in because they're probably just there for a day and dispatched really quickly. They do no action, but those two being there, I think, basically just immediately stamps that scene with the authority. Yeah, the authority of like, because I think both of them have kind of been Takashi Miike movies, and
that's what I was gonna say.
Always playing Yakuza, always their entire career.
Yeah, I was kind of reminded of that great tiny little cameo in Stephen Chow's King of Comedy, where Jackie appears for a second, and just it kind of like opens the ceiling up to the movie or something for a second, and you're never quite the same.
Yeah,
I do like that they're holding this really cute dog, and whenever they go into the other room, the guy dispatches
the dog's
off
okay.
screen.
Yeah,
but then you see the dog run back in. You're like, okay, all right, they're not that evil.
Yeah, great little touch.
Who is this heavy that we're introduced here that dispatches them? Because he has a very distinct look. I didn't know if he was someone.
Yeah, so he works in the same circles here, and the actor's name is now Hiro Kawamoto. And I mean, to me, he totally like fits the bill of like a henchman kind of
ruthless,
like,
kind of
character actor.
T-1000 almost.
Yeah. I don't.
He kind of looks like the heavy and Hard Boiled, like that has like the big like hunting pistol thing that's shooting. That's played by the. Crap! He's a really famous guy. We've had
That's
much stuff.
That's Philip Kwok from the
Philip
Venom.
Kwok.
Philip Kwok.
One of the Venoms.
Yeah. Can't remember his name. Yeah, the Philip Kwok character in Hard Boiled. He kind of reminded that. Has a similar jacket.
I mean, we love the character actors, man. Give me all of those character actors.
Yeah, for real.
He's done a bunch. I mean, he's kind of more. I think he's probably largely still more known as a stunt performer. He does act on occasion. He's did a lot of motion capture for the sort of CG animated version of Gantz. And he's in Hydra. He's kind of going back to kind of Sonomura's earlier movie. So he kind of plays. He also has a similar role in Hydra, actually, in the sense that he's kind of just there to be a perfect foil for the action. But no, he's been acting since 2005, so I think he's been around for quite a long time, and acting and doing stunts for 20 years. So I can't get his exact age, but yeah, he's incredible. I think he's also actually the action supervisor on The Furious as well. I think he's kind of helps
great
out, on that side of things as well.
And actually, that speaking of Hard Boiled, the movie kind of becomes Heroic Bloodshed for a little bit there,
right.
Because in this next scene where they go into Fumika's apartment and have all these classic silencers and lots of people holding up guns and crying over people bleeding, classic stuff like that.
But they do escape, and you have a moment here where that heavy, I forget his name, I think it's Katsuya. They don't really say it, maybe more than once, but
I was gonna say I'm not sure if they say it. They might, but they don't say it much.
I think only one guy, when he's pleading for his life, because he's going to basically kill one of the guys who'd failed to complete the task when they went on a mission, but even though he didn't lift a finger to try and help them. But I think one of those guys, when he's pleading for his life, calls him Katsura.
And he sees her escaping, and we're back to this kind of warehouse corridor that we've seen a couple of times now, and Kagehara meets them. He says, "I knew you would be here." And we've got another moment of a bit of character growth. And I love how Fumika's just so fed up with everything. She has like no tolerance for him. She just like tells him to fuck off. And he's being tested. His limits are reached, and he pulls a gun. But we get another high five. And now this is what you mentioned earlier, Marty, where we'll see Kudo in the role of the fighter and not just seeing Akari Takaishi performing.
And it what's great is it feels like it has this dramatic heft to it, and then also as kind of like a giddy action audience, you get treated because it's like good. It's like we are going to get to see Mimoto like fight some more.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So, I
at
don't know,
first,
just this
at first I
win-win.
was thinking like we don't like you see him fight a little bit at the beginning, but I wonder if they were gonna just have it all be her. But I like the way they do it.
Yeah,
It shows that both of the actors are capable at fighting.
right. The Welgo Blu Ray is pretty light on extra features, but there's a half an hour making of feature that's split kind of in half. There's like half of it is them filming and going through different moments of them filming, and then there's maybe like a 10 or 12-minute bit where it's Kagehara and Fumika's actors basically kind of interviewing each other, talking about things. But you do see some moments of choreography, and it's really cool to see.
Oh, great.
There's like a secondary camera away from the cameraman that's doing, when you see some of this hand-to-hand stuff here, you see the cameraman moving, and it was really awesome to me because it feels like, we're seeing how kinetic this camera work is, and you're seeing like the cameraman is, I mean, of course they're like a third member of this choreography, but it's almost even more so with how they're doing it in this film. They have to not just plan out, where these attacks are landing and where the shots should be, but he's moving in a way that's following certain movements in the choreography, and it's really exciting. Yeah, I had to say that. There's some really fun stuff when you're seeing people doing the acting, and Akari Takaishi's talking about how like when they just first started filming, it was like basically the scene where she's being possessed, and she's like, oh crap, this is like basically the hardest acting I have to do in the whole film on the first like day. But and then I believe they shot the bar fight after that, and it was like kind of one of the high points of her action wise too, so she was under a bit of stress. So seeing this fight play out is super awesome, and then we also do get a bit of a reveal where we're seeing how the complete assassination of Kudo played out, and you see that Kagehara, he refers to them as dogs, like the hitmen are dogs. And he even says there's like a ranking there, like I'm a shepherd and he's a Doberman. And you see that he's always followed orders even though he's an assassin, but it pains him to have to kill this man who he saw as like his senior.
And before we get too far away from it, you mentioned Welgo USA, but their disc, for anybody who's interested in picking this up on physical media, definitely the one to get, because Welgo were co-funders for this movie. They basically kind of financed partially. So they kind of, you'll see their logo at the end, but I think presumably off the back that Welgo had done very well on the Baby Assassins releases, so I think they were very supportive of more projects coming.
And I think they offer a 4K disc too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. There's Blu-ray and a regular 4K. It's coming out in France as well in 4K, but so far that hasn't dropped, and I'm not too sure if the extras will be ported over, and it won't have English subs. So definitely the Welgo one is the one to track down for anyone who's looking to pick up the movie, which they absolutely should.
Yes, I agree.
So this kind of leads us to our final action set piece where Kudo and Kagehara kind of have closure, and Fumika and Kagehara have to kind of storm the castle, as it were, and try to take out basically the whole organization, it seems, which I guess is like 20 guys in a warehouse. They have to sneak in, and that's where we mentioned earlier, but that's where we get a really fun, very video gamey thing where she's hiding on a stairwell and having Kudo go ahead of her to scout out to see if there's guards coming.
Yeah. And here again, we find it's like, there's even more, there's sort of like more juice to the fruit, because he can kind of shout out at the top of his voice. And you've never quite seen anything like it. So I don't know. They really get as much out of this premise as is humanly possible.
And then it turns into a John Woo shootout.
It does, but they give her the conceit where she's
with some of those cowboy swaps. Like
I
love the cowboy swaps, and they work this nice conceit in from a, I guess, slightly protective of Fumiko's soul, where they basically tell her that she shouldn't, and by extension Kudo, when he's inside her, shouldn't be killing anyone. So he literally just shooting to wound, and then the other hitman's going to basically be the one that actually does the final deed to kind of keep her unscathed as in terms of not taking a life herself, which I think was nice from a point of view because it made sense for her character, because I think she potentially struggled to take struggle with the
Yeah,
ramifications of taking a life, but also meant that a lot of the choreography when the two of them were working together worked really nicely
Yeah,
because
it's
you had
more
one
like inventive.
shooting the
Yeah.
legs and the other one shooting the head. So
Yeah.
it's wonderful.
There's some sick moves in this too. It's
Yeah.
I definitely
Oh,
got to make some
definitely.
gifs for this episode. Lots of great spins and slides and dives.
And here too is where we get some of the like Homer running on the floor kind of
Yeah, there's
like circling.
the
and
one
stuff, so
shot,
it's great.
that you were talking about earlier, Marty, where she is like running around an assailant, basically like he's like a trajectory, like she's ricocheting off of him
Yeah.
to go to the next guy, and then she's
Whoa.
Yeah,
I can't, almost like Curly in the Three
It
Stooges,
is.
maybe, or
Yeah.
something. Like, I can't slow down. Yeah.
it's
I think
really
that
really
might
fun.
even be the origin of the Homer thing, isn't it? I think that
It
Yeah,
is,
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Three Stooges bit. The walking on the circle on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, really high energy, and yeah, it's a thing where I don't know. I just love movies because it's not like where you're gonna be like that wouldn't work in real life. It just looks so cool. Like you want to see
Yeah,
more of
totally.
it in a way that I think we really haven't seen before. And, I mean, we've seen in video games like Guitar Slide, like gunplay, and I love that too. Like
Right,
Platinum Games Vanquish, like that was so cool to me. But
That game should be just called Knee Slide.
Yeah.
That's like half the game.
Did you guys ever remember it's a GameCube game called Geist?
I was thinking about Geist
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole time watching this movie.
Yeah, so
I'm glad you brought it up.
yeah, you're like a soldier, and it's like a supernatural thing where you have to possess items to like basically get the abilities to progress. Because as a ghost on your own, you can do nothing. And I think it was a Western developed game, but it was
Yeah,
released
yeah.
exclusively on the GameCube. Yeah, definitely think of that. The other game I have to mention before we stop recording is Ghost Trick, like one of my favorite games
totally.
of all time. The namesake of my dog. Rest in peace to my dear Missile.
R.I.P. Missile.
And it's this idea where played out like a puzzle adventure game, but you're solving a murder mystery, and what you do is you go back to like a moment before somebody dies. It's a certain amount of time, and you have to, as a ghost, possess different items to help prevent that. And it's just one of the best games ever.
It's so good.
But yeah, so like we've got some gunplay here, and then that leads us into a small opening. And in this opening, we have Kudo and Fumika. They separate, and we're doing this thing again where he's going to give her a heads up, but who you see cross that threshold is our ace assassin, and we're setting up for what is a big fight now.
Yeah, this one gets brutal, where there's a knife getting passed around, lots of very up close like boxing kind of stuff. The great bit where he has to like wrap his knuckles and everything.
Yeah.
And also there seems to be like something they kind of hint at but don't really go super into, where if he punches where the wound is in the ghost, that like affects him more. So the guy figures that out and keeps like aiming for Kudo / Fumika's left side, which eventually does knock him out and forces them to separate, which that's super video gamey. Like the ghost ran out of stamina, so then you have to separate to build it back up.
I'm surprised you read that as like his weak spot, because like to me I thought it was like he had like a rib injury, and then the other assassin like knew that he's hurt, and then he's like really focusing on that spot. But I like that it's like what you're saying now. It's like, hey, I know you're
like a ghost weakness.
Yeah, I like that. That's really fun.
Well, and I've got to say, I mean, it's been for me like quite some time since seeing like such a nail biting finale. I can't quite articulate exactly how that's all kind of getting executed, but you're just so engaged in this entire thing, and there's no sense of kind of like inflated confidence in your hero, like, or the villain. You just don't want to blink. You want to catch every single like strike and grapple, and yeah, just extremely, extremely engaging. Yeah, the only thing that maybe you could say about it is it's like the kind of dramatic conceit to kind of like break us out of it. I found like the whole time I'm wondering like, okay, like what's going to be the inventive like sort of finisher that I don't see coming, and that doesn't exactly exist, but it's almost like what you get is this like very story satisfying beat, if not so much like, an ingenious kind of choreography finish per se, but yeah, a really great sequence that then pushes into, I think, a really kind of gripping story moment, because then we see something happen that hasn't occurred so far, which is like our ghost can maybe pass out. And I like that it's even questioned as it's happening. It's like, wait a second, like are you here? Like you can pass out? What's happening?
I love that. To me, the like kind of visceral kind of drawn out idea of this fight is like, like a Gareth Evans, a Raid kind of, you're in a physical way, like you're watching two people pushing to a limit. That's like,
it's a war.
Yeah,
basically.
this is a fight where one of us is gonna die, and yeah, it's pretty wild. I think it's super effective, but yeah, like I still go back to that weak point thing. I want more of these ideas. It's really fun to, like a live action movie, but it's like a video game weak point. I love it.
Yeah. And one thing that I kind of wanted to call it earlier, but this is a good time to do it too. I do like that Fumika isn't completely helpless whenever she's separated.
Yeah.
Because like whenever they do get separated, she is able to fight enough to keep the guy down so that she can do the high five again to have Kudo take over. And related to that, earlier in the movie, whenever they're fighting the bad boyfriend, the final blow isn't done by Kudo / Fumika. It's done by Maho because she hits him over the head with a cinder block.
Yeah, and Kudo reacts to it like, "Dude, you killed him."
Yeah, like that was too far.
Really funny. And we haven't mentioned it either, but like as far as like doubling goes, I think it's pretty non-existent. Especially with her.
Yeah, extremely minimal. Yeah.
I don't think they didn't have the budget for that. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think she was doing pretty much.
They taught stunt performers how to act, not hired stunt performers for actors.
Yep. So Honda puts a quick end to this fight with an Uzi. He runs into the room and accidentally kills. Well, I mean, he didn't really care either way. He kills that that hitman, and then followed by him is Kagehara. And they get a beat on him, and that's pretty much it.
There's that incredible shot when both of his shins are
that's a good
blown
one.
Up, and it's kind of fuzzy in the foreground. It's maybe weird to say that it's like beautiful, but it kind of is somehow.
And that dramatic like match cut of Kudo and Fumika both aiming the gun, like it kind of jumps back and forth.
Yeah,
it's pretty effective too.
Yeah, and that's a nice shot because that's a practical effect. There's definitely some kind of CG blood that's a little shaky in some of this movie, but that's a good use of your practical effects to show the guy getting his knees shot out.
They show that in the making of too. He's kind of joking about it. He's like, "I'm nervous," because he's got squibs on his legs.
Yeah. I love whenever like they're kind of like decompressing and like walking out. She's like in so much pain and like she can't put her arm down. It's such a cool way of showing that.
And we have that concept even from the very first fight where she's like, "Oh, my fists are like, are they broken?" It's you really get this sense of the contrast, which is great.
And I read that as her ribs being broken in the fight, but I love the ghost wound idea more. So
I mean, it could be both.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but yeah. And so she's kind of pretty broken. And we should also mention that at the end of that fight, I think because it's brought Kudo's revenge full circle. He's gone. So by the time that she comes outside, he's no longer with it.
And I like how it's very matter of fact how they handle it. It's not a melodramatic moment really from his side. It's just from that moment after he doesn't show up, and she kind of has a realization of that. But I think it's like Kagehara is asking her, like, what's Kudo saying now? And then that's when she like kind of realizes that he's not around anymore.
Yeah, really
Her
well
thoughts
done.
can go back to wanting to get reimbursed for her trashed apartment.
Wait a sec.
Yeah. I love when she screams that out to kind of like, the spoiled new kingpin or whatever. There's not enough time because he just gets killed. But she's like, pay for my apartment.
And she says something like, he's like, who are you? And she says her name. She's like, I'm just a college student.
Normal college student.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
Great.
Really cool.
Great, like, trailer fodder.
And that takes us to the finale. It's
This is the end, yeah.
pretty quick.
It kind of just jumps to her, presumably several months later, where she's not in horrible pain and bleeding everywhere. And
no NGs or anything because they just never screwed up.
It's perfect every time.
Accurate.
Yeah, it is. It's nice. It's just a little epilogue. She meets up with Maho. She finds. At first, it's a bullet casing, and then when she holds it up, it's an actual bullet, which I guess is kind of like it's
whole.
It's complete now or something. And then meets up with her friend, and that's the credits.
Yeah,
that's Ghost Killer.
So good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more. This is going to sound like a backwards compliment. I enjoyed it a lot more as a movie than I was expecting, because I figured it was going to be like have some sick, action or whatever. But I was like, oh no, that's actually like it's shot really well. The acting's pretty good. The story is fun and drags you along. Mm-hmm. It has a really good scope. Like it knows what it wants to be, and it knows what it needs to do to get there. It doesn't, overstay its welcome. It doesn't try to do too much. It also it works within its budget and is a really fun time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And speaking of really fun times, we also have a special Heroes 3 correspondent update, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, I really, just knowing the people that listen to this and knowing you guys, I'm very fortunate to have gone down to Chicago with my buddy Mike, also a friend of the podcast. We went to the Music Box Theater in Chicago, and they were hosting. It's basically Beyond Fest, but in Chicago. This is the first time they're doing it, and this Saturday was jam packed with Heroes 3 goodness. At 11 a.m. that day, there was, I believe, a 35 millimeter showing of The Kid with the Golden Arm.
Oh, cool.
And it was to be introduced by the RZA, but I guess he had some travel complications, so he was delayed. But that afternoon, there was a double feature of Lady Snowblood and female prisoner Scorpion. And the thing about this was that Meiko Kaji was in attendance of this.
Yeah, I was gonna say Meiko Kaji was there. That's the kicker to all that.
Which is absolutely amazing. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend that, but I was able to attend a nighttime screening of The Furious, which was the Midwest premiere of it at the Music Box, the main theater. There's probably, I think, 500, maybe more than 500 seats. And it was a completely full screening of this film. And so this is directed by Kenji Tanigaki and action by Kensuke Sonomura. Not just that, but just the cast itself is full of all stars, pulling from lots of different countries.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say too much about the movie, but what I will say is, and it honestly does feel like one of the best martial arts movies I've seen in, I don't know, 10 years. Like new movie. Like I'm talking about not stuff maybe I've discovered through the podcast, but a brand new film that is just full of talent and full of passion and full of energy. And a lot of the things that we really enjoyed about Ghost Killer today, they're building blocks for what I saw in The Furious. And there are
cool.
moments in The Furious where, I mean, I'm a pretty controlled person, but I was excited watching this with a full house.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
could
that sounds
not
amazing.
better.
help but vocalize my reaction to moments in this movie. So I'm sorry to be hyperbolic about it, but
Don't
Dude,
fall
no,
down
I
the
think you're trying to contain it,
Yeah.
but I don't know. That's if it's that great, like
It-
it's not fair if you should.
Yeah.
you shouldn't have done that.
It's amazing, and I can't wait for everyone to see it. I feel fortunate. There was screenings of this a while ago. I think there was one in the United States maybe late last
Yeah.
year. And now Lionsgate has the rights to distribute this here, and it's coming out the end of May, I believe. And I don't know how big the distribution is.
Worldwide, from what I've heard, it's international.
Oh, beautiful! Yes,
I'm hoping that it's and I've heard, haven't had this confirmed by Lionsgate because they never say anything, but
yeah,
have read in a couple of places that it's day and date for an international rollout. So I'm hoping that we all get it
Oh, cool.
Good.
around the world
Yes.
on May the 29th, I think.
yeah, that's the date.
Yeah.
Just incredibly excited for everyone to see this movie. And yeah, I feel very, very privileged to have seen it in the way that I did. But I do want to say stuff, but for me, I didn't watch a trailer. All I knew was who was involved. I really enjoyed Twilight of the Warriors, and I knew that this is also in a way building momentum off of what that was. So it did really live up to what I hoped it would be. And please get excited.
I cannot
Please
wait.
be excited.
And Carlos, have you been keeping up with what the lead actor in this has been up to in the last couple of years, Yao Mei? Because he was a child actor. He played Jet Li's son.
He's
in
Jet Li's
My
son
Father the
in My
Hero.
Father the Hero. I do, I know all of
Oh,
that,
cool.
but I don't know like where he has been recently. So like seeing, go right ahead.
He's had a few of them are available already on Wellgo, but he's had this incredible career over the last few years working with IQE, the Chinese
Yeah.
streaming service, making essentially movies to go straight for streaming. But some of them are phenomenally good. He did 2 sort of tribute Zatoichi movies called
The Eye for an Eye
for an
films.
Eye, yeah, and a series called Fight Against Evil, which all 3 of, I think they're up to number 3 now, but all 3 of are incredible. And particularly, even if you just started with the third, Fight Against Evil 3 is incredibly good, and he's incredibly good in it. Really charismatic and also incredibly capable when it comes to action. So I'm really happy to see him in a movie that's getting a big, massive American release because more people need to pay attention to him. He's phenomenal.
Dude, I mean, the spotlight is on him for real, but it is an ensemble cast. You've got Brian Lee, one of the Marshall Club boys, in such a great role. He's perfectly used in this film. Joe Taslim's in it, and I mean, he's always great. Jija Yanin is in it, and it's just, oh man, it's just, I gotta stop talking actually.
Yeah, this episode's
Well,
going
yeah.
a little long, but
Hopefully, we can
sounds
coordinate
great.
something special when it
Yeah.
gets
Yeah,
a wider
for sure.
release, and maybe cover it on the show. Would be
I
great.
don't like get goosebumps when I'm watching movies. I got goosebumps at a specific moment during this film.
Oh, that rules.
Yeah.
That's always a good
The last
feeling.
time I
Dude,
feel like
yeah.
I almost got goosebumps was when we covered Project A, and there's that moment where the brothers are all together. And like I was already familiar with that, but covering it
man.
for the podcast
Yeah.
really made me feel
sure.
away. And
Yeah.
this was
Oh,
special
totally.
stuff.
All right, cool.
Word.
Well, any other final thoughts, or we want to wrap this thing up?
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah,
This
is so great.
has been so great. Johnny, thank you so much.
Yeah, Johnny,
It's been
definitely.
my absolute pleasure. I wouldn't have missed it. This was a blast. Anytime.
Well, do you have any? Do you have anything for you to plug?
Oh my God, yes, please. No, you have to talk about all your stuff because you've been carrying the torch while we've not been doing episodes in a way that I really appreciate too.
We've been pretty busy. I think we've just passed episode 18 of the Might Avengers podcast, which I'm having an absolute blast doing. And that's me with Jason from Martial Arts Theatre 3000 and Sean from Foo for Thought. and incredibly inspired by what you guys have been doing. So we're, in some ways, we're just following it in your footsteps up Kung Fu Mountain, and are really happy to do so. So we've been kind of loving putting that together, and I think we've kind of found this groove where we're quite often just doing kind of old classics, but then periodically, because Jason's seen nothing post 1992. So we're having what we're calling intervention episodes. So we're getting to kind of sit him down and watch stuff for the first time, which has been a real blast, because it means that even if it's a movie that both Sean and I know inside out and back to front,
you get fresh eyes all of a sudden.
100%. Yeah, so much so. And I've been doing more and more bits and pieces for some of the labels. So really happy to have done some stuff with 88 Films. So wrote the entire booklet for their Joe to the Death release, which was a real hoot to do. And a couple of other bits and pieces that haven't come out yet. And then I think some stuff for Chameleon in Australia and a bunch of others in the works. So yeah, it's been a great start to the year already.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, your own YouTube channel as well is a great resource. I've been influenced many times.
Well, hopefully not to spend too much money, because it does. I think I pick up a lot of things, but I always hasten to mention that I sell a lot of things too to fund the things that I pick up. So I'm not don't have that much of a hoarding mentality. So I'm always selling stuff to buy more stuff. So, but I do get quite a few messages from people saying like, "Damn you! I've spent my rent allowance on movies this month. I don't want anyone to spend beyond their means." But
don't do that.
I don't know if I mentioned this last time you were on, but when we did an episode on The Odd Couple, I have the Blu Ray. I think it's 88 Films that released it, or Eureka. So I have the regular version of that, so it didn't come with the booklet. But here, I watched your video with your unboxing, and I kid you not, I read the article that I wanted to through your video on screenshots.
Just by pausing? Oh,
yes.
Cool. Just start recording them in 4K, so hopefully that should get easier in the future. And I do sometimes fast forward through the booklet flips. So if I ever do something that flies by too quick, if you catch me real fast, I might still have the unsped up version saved. And I just got a message in that I would be loath if I didn't share with you, because I've been a lot of the writing bits and pieces that I've been getting have come to me through Kung Fu Bob, who's been an incredible friend to me for the last 2 years. But he knows that I was coming on just to record with you guys tonight, so he's requested that I say hi, and that also to tell you that he's fairly recently started listening to your show, and that
oh my gosh,
awesome!
So that's amazing.
He's a big fan, so he gives it the Kung Fu Bob thumbs up.
Oh wow, that is.
Well, thanks, Kung Fu Bob.
Yeah,
not worthy.
He's a legend. I mean, honestly, like I love seeing all his work, and oh man, that's really great. I love hearing that. Thank you, Johnny, and man, Kung Fu Bob, you're awesome. Thank you for listening.
He's incredible. I love him dearly. A nicer man you could not meet. He's a real sweetheart.
So cool.
Very cool.
Constantly out to help everybody around him that he can, and is kind of always lifting up people from the little community. He's the one of the admins and moderators on the Kung Fu Fandom forum. So you can, if anybody spends any time over there, you'll usually cross paths with Bob at some point, and invariably in a positive way.
Awesome. Cool. And I do have one more thing. We are going to be at VGMCon, and we also are going to be hosting a panel, and I'm very excited about this. This is more VGMCon than our last panel, but this is going to be based on Asian composers that have worked both in cinema and in video game music. I'm very excited about it, and I'm sure we'll try our best to record it and share it with everyone.
Well, thank you so much for checking out our show. If you enjoyed it, then you can leave us a review on whatever you're listening to this on. You can follow us on your social media of choice at Heroes3 Podcast. And if you have a recent favorite, if you have a movie from the past 10 years or so that you think that we should talk about, that's an amazing example of Asian cinema, then shoot us an email at heroes3podcast@gmail.com. So, we are continuing on, or jumping back into film, talking about, Carlos, what is our training for next week?
So, our next episode, we will be talking about Enter the Fat Dragon. And no, this is not the Kenji Tanigaki film with Donnie Yen. We were talking about 1978, Sammo Hung.
Nice.
And I
Classic.
believe we will have guests for this one. Yes, I said it plural.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very
I can't
cool.
wait.
Awesome. I'll be there listening.
Well, until next week, where we're taking a look at Enter the Fat Dragon, I'm Matthew,
I'm Marty.
I'm Carlos.
Been Johnny.
and we are the Heroes 3 plus Johnny. Remember your training. Heroes 3 is part of the Mercado Brothers Podcast Network.